Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered for February 4th, 2019. I'm Dr. Avis in for Roland Martin, who is still out with his voice. He's expected back tomorrow. On today's show, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam is refusing to resign over the racist photos on his medical school yearbook. Afraid he will be branded a racist for life if he does, I guess, as opposed to being branded a racist for life who's also selfish if he doesn't. We've got more details. About the only Democratic politician not calling for Northam's resignation is Virginia's Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, who would succeed Northam if he resigns. He doesn't want to be seen advancing himself. But late Sunday, a woman called forward and accused him of sexual assault back in 2004, an allegation Fairfax has vehemently denied. Actor Liam Neeson admitted in an interview that he went looking for a black person. Any black person he could beat with a crowbar after a person close to him alleged that she was raped by a black man. He did it for a week. We've got the chilling audio tape. More efforts to destroy black farmers, this time by allegedly selling them defective seeds. We'll talk to the man who's suing the seed company. Next, Jussie Smollett speaks out for the first time about the racist and homophobic attack last week. We've got the video from his LA concert. Kristoff St. John, star of The Young and the Restless, passes at 52. We have the sad details. Bennett College keeps its accreditation after an outpouring of financial support that raised more than the $5 million it needed. And today is the birthday of Rosa Parks. So we are joined by Janice Mathis of the National Council of Negro Women to talk about the importance of Rosa Parks even today. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Friday, we showed you this page from Democratic Virginia Governor Ralph Northam's medical school yearbook page from 1984, when he was 25 years old. Since it surfaced, pretty much every Democratic office holder in Virginia has called on Northam to resign. The calls for his resignation, including the 2 Democratic senators from Virginia and all the announced impossible 2020 Democratic presidential candidates, accelerated after he first apologized for being one of the 2 people in the racist photo and then said, no, he wasn't that person. It wasn't me, the Shaggy defense, right? He reversed himself on the photos at the disastrous live news conference. Take a look.
When my staff showed me the photo in question yesterday, I was seeing it for the first time. I did not purchase the EVMS yearbook, and I was unaware of what was on my page. When I was confronted with the images yesterday, I was appalled that they appeared on my page, but I believe then and now that I am not either of the people in that photo. I stand by my statement of apology to the many Virginians who were hurt by seeing this content on a yearbook page that belongs to me. It is disgusting. It is offensive. It is racist. And it was my responsibility to recognize and prevent it from being published in the first place. My belief that I did not wear that costume or attend that party stems in part from my clear memory of other mistakes I made in this same period of my life. That same year, I did participate in a dance contest in San Antonio, in which I darkened my face as part of a Michael Jackson costume. I look back now and regret that I did not understand the harmful legacy of an action like that. It is because my memory of that episode is so vivid that I truly do not believe I am in the picture in my yearbook.
And you said that the competition in San Antonio was a dance competition?
Yes.
And it was that you danced the moonwalk?
That's right.
Are you still able to moonwalk?
Inappropriate circumstances.
My wife says inappropriate circumstances.
A new poll conducted after the pictures surfaced showed Notham's net approval rating plummet. CNN is reporting that, according to a source at Notham's cabinet meeting this morning, that the governor specifically said that if he resigns, he would be resigning as a racist for life, that he wants to stay in office and convince people that he is not in that photo. Good luck with that. And that the photo does not represent who he is. While all this was going on late yesterday, an allegation of sexual assault surfaced against Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. A woman claimed he sexually assaulted her in the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston. Fairfax put out a statement at 2:55 a.m. this morning denying it. And late this afternoon, he held an impromptu news conference at the Virginia Capitol building and said these allegations were timed to smear him, as he may become Virginia's governor if Governor Ralph Northam resigns.
And my family is strong. My faith is incredibly strong. My faith in God is unshaken. We will not only deal with this smear as we've dealt with so many other attacks over time, but we've always, when we've been attacked, been elevated. Every single time someone is attacked, whether it's a lie, whether it's a smear, a political attack, a personal attack, a character assassination attempt, we've always not only gotten through it, but we have been elevated. And my faith in God is so strong, and I know that the facts will show exactly what we have borne out.
How would you describe the relationship? How would you describe the relationship? What was the relationship?
What relationship?
With this woman?
It's someone who I met in 2004 at the Democratic National Convention, and as I mentioned, I told all this to the Washington Post at the time, a year ago, and there's not one fact that I gave to them that they were able to contradict.
Can you tell us what happened? What is it?
Sure. I met her at the convention. We met and talked, and I did not know her prior to. I was 25 years old, unmarried, a campaign staffer at the time, and we hit it off. She was very interested in me, and so eventually at one point we ended up going to my hotel room. This is in 2004. She was, very much into consensual encounter, and she even admits in the story there's consensual activity going on. And again, I have children, so I'm going to be very circumspect about what I say. But everything was 100% consensual. And not only that, the same person called me sometime later and wanted to meet with me, wanted to come visit me. I was still in law school at Columbia Law School, wanted to come to New York City to meet with me, wanted me to meet her mother, and said that years later, months later in this case, and years later now. We have a totally fabricated story out of the blue that's meant to attack me because of where I am in politics. The fact that it only came up once I won. Remember, I have run for office before. I ran in 2013 in a primary statewide. I ran in 2017 in a primary statewide. I ran, of course, in the general and won. It was only at the point that I won that this person fabricates this claim and then attempts to, again, get it into the media. And when they failed the first time to get it into the media, comes back around a year later at another point of maximum media attention, and once again tries to get it in through some website and some people who we know who are involved in this. And so no one who's telling the truth operates in that way. I have nothing to hide, and yet to have someone manipulate the media. If you were telling the truth, there's no reason that you would go away for a year once you fail to get it into the Washington Post and then come back later, again, with zero corroboration whatsoever, and there's no corroboration because that did not happen.
Collective PAC, they said that you believe that the governor's team is spreading misinformation about your team. Can you comment on that, please, sir?
The Collective PAC has made its statement, and so
you believe it?
I don't know precisely where this is coming from. We've heard different things, but here's the thing: does anybody think it's any coincidence that on the eve of potentially my being elevated, that's when this uncorroborated smear comes out? Does anybody believe that's a coincidence? I don't think anybody believes that's a coincidence. Again, particularly with something, this was not the first time this was brought up. It was a year ago this was brought up, and yet the Post, who investigated it for 3 months, dropped the story, did not do it, and they did not do it because it was uncorroborated, and it's uncorroborated because it's not true. And so it goes away for a year and then crops back up right at this moment. You don't have to be cynical. You don't have to understand politics to understand when someone's trying to manipulate a process to harm someone's character without any basis whatsoever. And again, I have lived my life in a way that I'm proud of. I've put myself up for election to the people of Commonwealth of Virginia multiple times. You never in the course of any campaign I have ever run had anything said like this about me. And again, I'm someone who grew up in a tough environment, Northeast Washington, D.C., but because people invested in me, I went to Duke University, Columbia Law School. I was on the law review at Columbia. I was a federal prosecutor. I have been through 2 FBI background checks in my life. I got a top secret security clearance, and I've been an attorney, a federal prosecutor, and now I'm a partner at a law firm and sitting as the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Take note, that's how you communicate clearly during a press conference. So as you heard, Lieutenant Governor Fairfax was asked about the Collective PAC, and joining us is Quentin James, co-founder of the Collective PAC, an organization that supports black candidates, and Philip Thompson, the president of the Loudoun County NAACP. Let's first go to Quentin. How are you doing this evening, Quentin?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, and it's been a wild 72 hours.
Oh, I can only imagine. Thanks so much for joining us. So I think I'll start off with that last point that was raised in the press conference. Could you tell us more about this allegation that perhaps this specific sexual assault allegation has creeped back up as a result of the Northam side of the political aisle?
Yeah, so listen, we were tipped off on late Saturday evening and early Sunday morning about an attempted whisper campaign from the Northam team. Now, we don't know who on his team was doing this, but they were raising questions about Justin's age and readiness to serve as governor should Governor Northam resign. That came out about 2:30 p.m. on Sunday, but also because we know where the original picture came from. On Friday, we were very wary about a white supremacist blog obviously not wanting to see an African-American like Justin Fairfax become a successful governor of Virginia. And so we put, a call out to folks to be ready for any lies, any other distractions that would have, been coming out. And little to our knowledge, at midnight on Sunday evening and Monday morning, that same white supremacist blog releases a Facebook post from the accuser, which was shared to them by what we are investigating, what we believe to be a very prominent and public Democratic and liberal couple from the Richmond area. And so we are unsure who they are connected to. We know that the woman who shared the accuser's Facebook post is the wife of a professor at the University of Richmond who also worked for 2 Democratic mayors in Richmond over the past few years. And so there is some concern around why would this reputable couple use this situation, right, this potential Me Too situation, and go to a white supremacist news outlet or blog with that information and not the Post or not the Times or many of the other reputable news sources. Come to find out at 3 a.m., yesterday, that this went to the Post and they decided that it couldn't be corroborated, so they didn't publish it. So now this is all kind of getting out there, conservative media jumping all over it. But we have a lot of questions about where did this come from, and who is kind of manipulating this process behind the scenes, using the veil of this white supremacist blog as like them breaking this news. And that's not where it came from. So we're looking into that.
That's a very important question. I mean, a very good question. I want to bring in Philip on this. What's your thoughts about where this came from? Does it seem plausible that this would have come from Democrats who are in essence trying to protect Northam?
Well, the delay process, if you look at how this all happened, he was going to resign and have indications. And then all of a sudden he has this meeting with these operatives of his, and they start delaying. And as they delay, then this comes out. So it's a perfect tactic to try to delay what's going on with you and then let this other stuff come out. And if it's messy enough, then either everybody will say, oh, well, let's just leave it alone.
Absolutely.
And you're sort of seeing that now with some of the people in the House saying, oh, there's no stomach for impeaching him and all these various things. So now it's gotten a little bit messy. If it was just Justin and his clean slate, I think things would have went a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, when I think back even to the campaign, for example, I'm a Virginia resident. I happen to remember the controversy about the Northam campaign basically copying some Democratic Party literature. The literature was copied word for word. It included a picture of Northam. It included a picture of Fairfax. It included the picture of the Attorney General candidate at the time, who's also white, right? But somehow, when Northam's campaign got a hold of it, the black guy's picture got erased. I mean, are we seeing some consistency here?
Yeah, we were ready for that. Those of us worked closely with Justin, and that's why I ended up in the Washington Post and New York Times really quick, hit them hard. They then jumped away from that. So you're starting to see the impact of that same type of technique. Virginia is, as I said, Virginia politics, especially Democrat politics, is somewhat of a plantation. You're allowed to preside on this plantation, but you're not going to get to the big house seats. That's the way they try to handle it. And in this situation, they are staring at the precipice of having a 39-year-old man become potentially a governor for 6 years. And for some people, that's probably untenable.
I hear you. So joining us on the panel today to talk about this and more is Joseph Williams, senior editor for U.S. News and World Reports, Michael Brown, former vice chair of the DNC Finance Committee, and of course Eugene Craig of X Factor Strategies. Yes. So welcome.
Appreciate it.
Great to have you on the panel. So first, I'd love your views on this. What do you think is going on here? Are we sort of being too conspiratorial when we talk about, hey, maybe this is coming from the Democrats?
It's hard to be too conspiratorial when you're talking about Virginia politics for the reasons you just said. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Doug Wilder was elected in the 80s, and on the eve of his election, when it looked like he had scored a clear victory, all of a sudden there was a recount, all of a sudden there were problems, there were malfunctions with machine X or machine Y, this precinct wasn't counted accurately. So it's not surprising at all. What is interesting is that it's coming from the left, ostensibly. And there's been a lot of discussion about this. And to me, it kind of smacks a little bit of liberal racism, where you have people who want to be on the right side, but still can't quite give up that measure of white supremacy or of superiority. They want to be in charge. They don't want any other people to be in charge, even though they have good intentions. Just trust us.
Yeah.
But I think right now it's a situation where you have to wonder if Governor Northam was lying then or if he's lying now. His credibility is dust. And even if he wasn't in that photograph, it still is a really bad look to kind of say, well, I wore blackface once on a moonwalk, and I should still get to be the governor.
Even the once thing doesn't hold water to me. Because when he specifically said, well, if you ever did this before, that it's hard to get too much off, so I didn't put too much on. And you don't know that if that's your first time using it.
Exactly.
But what are your thoughts about this?
I agree 100% with you. I mean, the record that that's become public in the last 72 hours between the blackface that now we know isn't the first time. He's now a Super Saiyan Coon Man. That's your nickname. That right there should disqualify you. I mean, okay, the picture. All right, where do you get a KKK robe in 1984?
Yeah.
I mean, did he just cross KKK? Where did I'm being honest here.
Cleaners,
where you just don't come across those just willy-nilly at your local Goodwill.
Well, I could tell you, I was actually a student at Virginia State University in the 1980s, and while I was
across a KKK road,
while I was at Virginia State University, there was actually a Klan march right by our campus where there were plenty of KKK robes.
Got it.
So it is not. To me, it is. Quite frankly, it looks pretty damn authentic to me.
But you're also talking about the former capital of the Confederacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
You're talking about that is not in short supply, I don't think. But also you've got the governor who was also mired in this campaign over the Confederate statues. The mayor of Richmond is African American. He was mired in it.
Yeah.
And you have this struggle for history.
Yeah.
A struggle who gets to decide history and who gets to say what's racist and what isn't. And to a lot of people's sentiment, it's not the white guy. He
Absolutely.
doesn't get to do that.
Yeah. I hear you. So, Michael, being someone who's familiar with breaking barriers, right? Do you think it was just too much for people to bear, hearing basically 24 whole hours of people having these thoughts about the second black governor in Virginia, the youngest governor ever in this nation? Do you think that was itself, all of that discussion, that chatter, was rubbing people the wrong way?
I mean, possibly. Just like it was too much for, after 8 years of an African-American president, and possibly a woman. Just like, so yes, sometimes, but you know what? Some of that doesn't even matter. Whether the lieutenant governor is black, yellow, green, or white, this guy needs to step down, period. Steve King needs to step down. I didn't hear Majority Leader McCarthy talking about leave the House. I heard him take him off some committees. I didn't hear anybody saying for him to resign. I certainly haven't heard any from the right telling President Trump, 45 to resign.
Look at you.
I slipped. It's terrible. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. He needs to step down, leave office. He has there's no moral equivalent. Yeah, maybe there's some conspiracy theories. It doesn't really matter. He needs to move on.
Yeah, Quentin, if Quentin's still available, I just had a question for him. Quentin, when you're looking at what now Governor, already calling him Governor Fairfax, is facing, what does this do in terms of damaging potentially his ability to be able to maybe not only just ascend to the governorship if for some reason Northam actually does get his senses and resigns? What does this mean in terms of his implications with regards to his ability to govern once he's in that space? Has his reputation, has his credibility in some sense been irreparably damaged?
So I think you raise a great question, and I think first we need to understand that these are two separate situations. Ralph Northam should resign immediately. That has no bearing on any falsehoods that have been released to the public over the past 24 to 48 hours. That's number one. Number two, the Washington Post and WUSA 9 in the D.C. area have both published accounts that they could not corroborate this story. And so the story is not corroborated. I don't think there's anything to really talk about there at the moment. Now, if things come forth that could, corroborate the story, sure, we could have that conversation. But again, this is a non-corroborated story. It's like me saying, Ralph Northam did something, right? Without any evidence or any additional information there, it's just a falsehood. And so lastly, I think we need to look at Justin's record as a public servant over the past year, his time as a federal prosecutor. He has always performed and served the public very well. And so I don't think this is damaging his reputation for the long haul. I think when you have truth on your side, what will come out will be in your benefit. And so I think this will take some time to, deal with in the public sphere. But I think it's just really important that, one, these are two separate issues. And second, the story is not corroborated at the moment.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate your perspectives on that, Quentin. One last question to Philip. As we wrap up this particular portion of the show, as it relates to this particular issue and the NAACP, what's your plan moving forward to sort of keep the pressure on Northam, number one, but also, number two, perhaps even filling in the role of protecting Fairfax to some degree?
Well, we're nonpartisan per se, but the issue that the governor's put us in is incredible, because this, people talk about what happened in 1984. Let's talk about what happened in Halloween just this year. Our governor dressed up as his favorite governor, which is Governor Brewer, who was a slave owner.
Oh my God!
He thought it was great enough. He thought it was okay to dress up as a slave owner in 2018. He called the NAACP and apologized, just like he tried to call the NAACP and apologize for this. So we're looking at that. And then if you look at his policies policies haven't been very pro-African American in any regard. It always irritated whenever I met either Governor Northam or Governor McAuliffe, and the first thing they would say in their defense is for African Americans, we got the felons registered. Well, my statement back to them was like, we're not all felons. So what else you got? You know? And then, that's the only issue we have. So this is a pattern of behavior that's gone on, and you can say 84, but now we're talking about 2018. Governor Northam needs to resign, and regardless if Justin was white, like he said, white, black, purple, pink, we need a new governor.
Got you. I hear you. So, as we all know, racism is everywhere, and today we found out it is, or was, in the heart of actor Liam Neeson. He gave an interview with The Independent on his new film, and he volunteered this confession about his own racist behavior. Some translations of what he says, a cush, for example, is what we call a crowbar, and the Troubles refers to the violence between Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland. Here is audio of the interview with The Independent. The language is unfiltered.
I'll tell you a story. This is true. I'm not going to use any names, but I was away and I came back and she told me she had been raped, but she handled the situation of the rape in the most extraordinary way. But my immediate reaction was, I asked, did she know who it was? No. What color were they? She said it was a black person. I went up and down areas with a cosh, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that. And I did it for maybe a week, hoping some black bastard would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, you know, so that I could kill him. And it took me a week, maybe a week and a half to kind of go for that. And she said to me, where are you going? I said, I'm just going out for a walk, you know. She said, what's wrong? No, nothing's wrong, fine. And it was horrible when I think back, but I did that. And I've never admitted that to it. I'm saying it to a journalist, God forbid.
Holy shit.
It's awful. But I did learn a lesson from it when I eventually thought, what the fuck are you doing, you know? And I come from a society, I grew up in Northern Ireland in the Troubles, and you know, I knew a couple of guys that died on hunger strike, and I had acquaintances that were very caught up in the Troubles. And I understand that need for revenge, but it just leads to more revenge and more killing and more killing. And, you know, Ireland, Northern Ireland is proof of that, you know. All the stuff that's happening in the world at the minute, the violence is proof of that, you know. So it's, but that's, yeah, primal need, I understand, you know.
So, Joseph, the need for revenge, that doesn't sound like revenge to me. A random black person sounds like a lynching to me. I mean, what do you think?
It sounds like homicide. And I thought it was quite interesting that when he unspools his, he unburdens himself about this whole situation, the one thing he apologizes for is thinking about killing someone and killing needs more killing. What about the racism part? What about the fact that you're going to get some random black guy off the street? I mean, it just boggles my mind and probably gets him. I have two questions. The first is, why are you bringing this up? I mean, I guess he's promoting a new movie, but I'm not really sure why this particular story feeds into that. Yeah. The second is, what happened to his consciousness of some black person he was going to kill, and he had homicide in his heart, and the only thing he saw was color? Why did he ask what color that person was? It just kind of mystifies me, and I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do.
Absolutely. So it's a little bit below black in social media today.
Number one trending topic all day. I mean, you got to think about this right now. I got to cancel about half of my adolescence. That's Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins, Aslan from The Witch, the King, and the Lion, right? Qui-Gon from Star Wars. Like, this is crazy.
Taken.
Like,
you mentioned Taken.
And the whole Taken series.
Oh yeah.
It's all gone. Like it's all, we gotta cancel. I mean, I try not to engage in too much cancel culture, but I mean, like, you made a point. Like, you apologize for the homicide, but the first thing you ask is, oh, what's his color? Because you already presumed that he was black. I mean, Northern Ireland, it's not too many other colors.
Yeah,
like, it's not
people, no.
It's not like the United States where you got, black, brown, maybe some tan. It's like pretty much like black and white there. And so, I think his career is probably over at this point. I don't see him. I mean, the guy plays Zeus. You gotta cancel Zeus now.
Okay, Eugene's in mourning. What do you think, Michael?
I don't even know what to add. It's unfortunate. It's tired. It's just, you have to just wonder if his judgment was impaired at the time. Maybe it had a couple sips. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how do you just talk about that, thinking it's okay to a reporter?
I will say, I have someone I'm connected to who made the argument. She was making a counter argument. I don't quite buy it, but I'll bring it up. So maybe someone here will agree with it.
Northam should have did?
Well, she's saying he shouldn't be castigated because he did express some level of remorse. It was only a week. And
a lot of people.
And yeah, a lot of people could have died in a week.
Have you seen
It's true. But the main point is that, you know, at least he expressed it, and we have to create a space where people can express even unpopular or ugly things, so that we can begin to face these feelings that a lot of people have, but will not outwardly express. I mean, what do you think about that?
I will say this, you know, if Northam did something like this and just came out and said, you know what, I hate black people, and I've done all these things, I think we probably would not be having a conversation about him resigning. If he was just upfront about it, how, you know, Liam was just upfront about he wanted to kill some black people. If Northam would have came out, you know, sometime over the last, you know, 15, however long his political career has been, and said, you know what, I've done some pretty racist things. And I think I hate black people, but I'm be honest about it. We might not be having a conversation about him resigning.
I don't know if I have to go that far. What are y'all saying? That's pretty extreme.
Part of the discussion around Northam. I mean, look, we all want to see Governor Fairfax. We all want to see the fifth black governor of the United States. We want to see that. But a big part of the discussion around Northam is that he has shown very little remorse behind it, and only wants to apologize after he's caught. And the discussion is the other half of that discussion is what happens if he gets out in front of it and presents it to us rather than us finding out about it on our own.
And he was attempting to get out in front of it by having that statement. Well, him and Liam were probably going to hook up on that. But I mean, he probably
put out yours, I put out mine.
Well, he was trying to get out in front of it with the apology and the video, right? And to my mind, if he had just shut up at that point, and maybe the next Sunday morning he's up in front of AME Church talking about redemption and I have sinned, and really trying to atone. And really trying to atone. But here you also have in Liam Neeson's case, you have a guy who's atoning for maybe the wrong thing. I mean, yes, homicide is wrong and nobody wants to get killed, but a lynching is a lynching. And he, it's an extrajudicial killing that he was contemplating of a random person of color. I mean, what does that say about his understanding even of what he was about to do? I mean, he has no concept of how that plays like now. And the two kind of, I think they're connected, but in a different way, is that is white cluelessness almost. That it's kind of like not really registering how A, offensive this is, how B, commonplace this is, and how C, you have to talk about why you thought this and why this is wrong.
Absolutely.
I mean, do you understand that?
Absolutely.
But one's like, to me, the junior varsity and one's the varsity. What Liam said has no impact on our lives. Oh, it's hurtful, it's bad, he shouldn't have said it, and we're not going to watch his movies, we're taking his movie. But the governor has direct impact and policy over your life if you're a Virginian.
Absolutely.
And so to me, it's worse.
Absolutely.
It's not even close.
And even just as disturbing, he was a doctor before he was a governor.
Oh, so, so he was taking care of people.
Exactly. And we know how black people are not given the same treatment as white people are when seen by a doctor. I mean, how many more are in blackface, and how many more are treating us and treating our children today that have hate in their heart?
Well, and that's just one real quick. That's the one thing that kind of strikes me is he got caught. How many other people out there do not get caught? And I'm always.
How many people has a copy of that yearbook?
Well, at least we're talking at least 1,000, give or take. And the other thing that kind of strikes me is every year it's Halloween and Black History Month.
Absolutely.
Somebody gets caught wearing blackface. They just do. Sometimes they get fired. Sometimes they get, a little slap on the wrist and goes.
Didn't it happen to a public official in Florida?
It happened.
Yes, it did. Secretary of State.
Secretary of State.
But one more thing about this Neetham situation. What I find interesting is that this issue of forgiveness somehow never came up. It's interesting. The reporter didn't say, "Well, did you think about forgiving this person?" Whereas, how many times have we seen when a grieving mother or a grieving sibling or a grieving loved one is sitting there heartbroken because their loved one has just been murdered by a white person? The first thing out of the reporter's mouth is, "Do you forgive?" Is forgiveness only our responsibility, apparently?
Well, I think in that set of circumstances, part of the responsibility is the journalist. I mean, we have a dearth of people of color in journalism. And because we don't have a lot of people of color in journalism, questions like that get answered, of grieving mothers and of movie stars. And even if you extrapolate it a little bit, even the elite political press who was covering Ralph Northam and covering Justin Fairfax probably had a blind spot or two, collectively speaking, that overlooked a lot of what happened with the vis-a-vis the flyers, and was not scrubbing him to get that yearbook photo.
2013, when during the debate, he wouldn't shake E.W. Jackson's hand.
Oh, wow. That's right.
Afterwards,
I forgot about that.
And keep in mind that Governor, I hate to call him Governor Northam anymore, but the governor, well, you know what? Go ahead, Dave. It's just tired.
He's like, he just need to go.
Right,
okay,
right,
that's the shortcut. He needs to go.
Did we throw a ball for Fairfax after he sworn in?
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Oh, it's lit.
Maybe small ones.
Well, from the governor to farmers, okay? In the 1920s, there were 1 million black farmers. I'm a descendant of them. Today, there are about 30,000. Sure, the number of farmers in general have declined over time. But for black farmers, discrimination from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, from banks and suppliers, have made it especially difficult to stay on the land. The TV show Queen Sugar from Ava DuVernay on the Oprah Winfrey Network tells that story. Today, we learned of yet another way black farmers are up against it. The Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association have filed suit against Stein Seed Company, charging they sold defective soybean seeds to black farmers. Last month, a federal judge said that these allegations are serious and ordered the parties to sit down for 60 days and try to come to a settlement. Joining us now is Thomas Burrell, president of the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association. How are you, Mr. Burrell?
Jackie, how are you? Good health and excellent spirits.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. So how did you discover that the seeds that you received were faulty?
Well, keep in mind that we represent African-American farmers, and these farmers started to allege and keep records that their soybean plants were not germinating properly. That is to say, they were not sprouting, they were not growing, they were not reproducing, they were not developing. And particularly during the fall of 2017, when it was time to harvest these plants, they contacted our office. I, in turn, called the corporate headquarters of Stein. Stein is the largest private seed manufacturer in the world, a multi-billion-dollar company. And I indicated to them that our members were having problems with these soybean seeds and asked them to send down their scientists, i.e. their agronomists, before these farmers started to harvest, so they, Stein, would be able to, shall we say, visit the scene of the crime to determine for themselves. Keep in mind, this organization has a patent on their products. They have over 900 patents. So if there's any question regarding the fertility or the progeny, that is to say the sons and daughters of their certified seeds, they, better than anybody, would have been able to test. And they came down, acknowledged that there was a problem, but they did absolutely nothing. And subsequently, this association did what we do as a civil rights organization. We filed a suit in federal district court for the Western District of Tennessee on behalf of black farmers and their heirs in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana.
Well, can you give me an estimate of about how much money, quite frankly, that the farmers have lost as a result of not being able to get a harvest because of these defective seeds?
Well, directly, they filed this lawsuit under a statute known as RICO, the Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization statute, which provides for treble damages, as it were. These farmers believe that they have been damaged to at least the tune of $25 to $30 million. Wow. They have been damaged in their business and in their property. It is difficult, Jackie, all along for an African American in general to get a loan to sustain their business. Here, these black farmers, as you said, there were, for all intents and purposes, 1 million black farmers in 1920. Now there are less than 30,000, we believe even fewer. They have difficulty getting loans to start with. Now this group was able to get a loan, but here again, because of systemic and continued discrimination, a private entity now wanted to deliver the fatal or the final blow, and that is, sure, now you got a loan, now you have equipment, now you have $1 million operations, but we're going to sell you defective seeds.
Wow.
The problem with that, in this particular case, Jackie, is this corporation didn't look around and say, well, you know what, we've got some seeds left. We want to get rid of some bad seeds, and there are some bad seeds in the corner. We'll sell those to black farmers. It's not that they were looking for bad seeds. They deliberately contacted other sources and asked them, in effect, do you have seeds that are not certified? And then was able to get those sources to ship those bad seeds to these farmers. We're saying that this is so blatant. This is an egregious act, a continued act of racial discrimination against not only the African-American community in general, as your guests were talking about earlier, blackface, people who are stereotypically discriminating against black individuals, whether in effigy or whether it's against black farmers. And keep in mind, this is nothing more than continued discrimination. We had those seeds tested by a reputable source, Mississippi Department of Agriculture and the Mississippi State University, and those seeds came back. The test proved what the farmers were alleging, that the germination, the ability to reproduce, was zero, Jackie.
Wow. Well, just to let you know, Jackie is our producer, but I'm so glad. That's all right. My name is Dr. Avis, but let me just ask you one last quick question. You know, what do you think is the prognosis for you all to be able to get some sort of significant settlement, given that the damages are so high?
Well, keep in mind, let me apologize, Dr. Davis, for the mistake. Now, we've been talking to Jackie. But at any rate, we believe the damages are high because, keep in mind, these individuals have been damaged in their property. They technically could be out of business. Just as you said, there were, for all intents and purposes, 1 million black farmers in 1920. It is the accumulative effect of the racial discrimination that has led to this demise, this decline. You're now talking about a handful of individuals who have survived the gauntlet. So the court should throw the book, as it were, at this corporation, because black businesses in general have failed, whether we're talking about the hair care industry, have been put out of business, African Americans in the service industry, the construction industry, and elsewhere. Black farmers have been the victims of discrimination, but they are one group. This group has survived the gauntlet, as it were. And keep in mind, we've been in this business, we've been in this country now for over 400 years. So yes, this company should pay. The farmers have been ordered to go to mediation, which is a step toward settlement. But if they're not satisfied with mediation, they will have a right then to have their case heard before a jury of their peers. Ultimately, they're not going to just take anything because they've been damaged too severely, and therefore we believe that a full measure of justice should be made available to them. The maximum amount of injury should deserve the maximum amount of damages.
Thank you so much, Mr. Burrell, for fighting for these farmers. As a proud granddaughter of farmers, I'm so happy that you do what you do. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we have a Jussie Smollett update for you. Over the weekend, Jussie made his first appearance since the attack last week. He held a concert in L.A. where he discussed the incident and even cleared up some rumors. Take a look.
I was going to say so much. I'm not fully healed yet, but I'm going to, and I'm gonna stand strong with y'all. A couple of points that I wanted to make really quick, just because it's 4 points. My little sister is literally like Olivia Pope, like she's in the back. I was bruised, but my ribs were not cracked. They were not broken. I went to the doctor immediately. Frank Gatson drove me. I was not hospitalized. Both my doctors in LA and Chicago cleared me to perform, but said to take care, obviously. And above all, I fought the fuck back. I'm the gay Tupac. cool.
We're happy that he's better, and we're, at least personally, I'm upset that he has to defend himself at all. But next, for 27 years, Kristoff St. starred on the CBS soap opera The Young and the Restless. Today we learned he passed. Police found him unresponsive at his home in Los Angeles. At this point, the cause of death is unknown. He was 52. According to TMZ, citing a source close to St. John, he had checked himself into the UCLA Medical Center for depression issues in January. He was recently released. St. John was really suffered from suicide. St. John suffered and I guess mourned over the suicide death of his son Julian a few years back. 2 years ago, around the anniversary of his son's death, police placed him under 72 hours observation when he threatened to kill himself. On The Young and the Restless, St. John had 9 Daytime Emmy nominations and 10 NAACP Image Awards. Roland talked to Kristoff St. back in 2014 and asked him about the decline of soap operas.
Yeah. They are a dying breed. Right. Yet, for some reason, Young and the Restless continues to be one of the dominant soap operas out there. Yeah. What do you think is the reason?
Soaps aren't necessarily dying. In fact, I see a resurgence. Just because all my kids went off on One Life to Live doesn't mean that we're going downhill.
Many folks think that reality television killed soap operas. But the point that you're just making, though, is great storytelling will always trump anything else.
Well, sure, and this is evidenced by primetime soaps, which we have. Tyler Perry's got Have and Haves. I mean, there's so
doing
much,
great numbers.
All the franchise shows like CSI, Criminal Minds. I mean, people are into the macabre, so I understand that particular thing. But the truth is, 5 days a week, people want to come and forget about their problems and have a fantasy world that they can dive into. We are their family. They've been with us, some of them, for 41 years. And they want to see us get married. They want to see us die, certain characters. They want to see us go to jail. It's such an interesting kind of juxtaposition of reality television, of people, they want to see the real stuff, and the fantasy world that we live in. And that's why I think we're still, chugging along. This is a mighty ship that's a luxury cruise liner. I'm happy to be part of the crew.
Well, I'm sure you like Fred Williamson. You don't want to see your character die.
Oh, no, sir. I am not looking forward to that day.
St. John's attorney Mark Geragos tweeted this: "Few men had the unique strength, courage, and sensitivity that Kristoff John lived every single minute of every day. He impacted everyone he met and millions whom he inspired and in turn admired him. On behalf of Mia St. John Boxer and the Stone St. John family, thank you all for the love." Michael?
Personal note, thank you very much. Point of privilege. As a 30-year fan of Young and the Restless, my mother and grandmother got me into it when I was a little kid. I continued to watch in college. I watched in law school, and I DVR it as of today.
For real?
This hurt.
Facts about Michael?
He came on the show in somewhere in the 1990, 1991.
Yeah.
And since then, Young and the Restless was really one of the leading soaps that now have a Latino family on.
Yeah.
Have African American families on. They were the leading soap for diversity. So he will be sadly missed. So point of privilege to my late mom, to my late grandmom, and to me. That's a heck of a show.
Oh, wow. That's so sweet. For HBCU Giving Day, today's HBCU is Kentucky State University. It was founded in 1886. Notable alumni include Tom Colbert, Effie Waller-Smith, Whitney Young, and Travis Grant. To donate, please visit kysu.edu. So on Friday, we showed you a press conference where High Point University donated $1 million to Bennett College. The president of High Point challenged everyone to donate more before the deadline today. Through his help and many others, Bennett College held a press conference today announcing they have officially exceeded their goal. Take a look.
When you add up the number this morning, I don't know if you got a banner or what you got going on. When you add up the number, you got to add the checks I just gave her for $357,500.
As of today, and let me just say, we still counting. We are still counting money. But as of today, Bennett College has raised $8.2.
So over $8 million. What do you guys have to say about that? They came back strong, didn't they?
Sure did. That's a lot of love, and it's well-deserved, too. I mean, I think people are starting to understand what HBCUs mean to America and what HBCUs mean to black people in general. And I think it's a really fantastic thing that you had a white college step in and try to kick in some and get everybody jump started about it. And Roland's daily HBCU Giving Day is just really, I think, one of the most outstanding things that you can do for public education.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's very telling that High Point jumped in there. I think, going forward, we're going to make sure our HBCUs are in a position that they're healthy and they're thriving. And a big part of that is helping them build up their endowments, helping them, retain students, make sure they're getting, just due funding. All those play a role in the health and vitality of our HBCUs. And so I'm glad Bennett's going to survive. Keep that accreditation. Keep our good black women strong and educated.
That's right.
So let's see what happens here.
All right.
And you know what Roland would say? Roland would say it shouldn't take a disaster for folks to write checks to HBCUs. It should be happening all the time from alumni, non-alumni, to keep our HBCU community strong.
Absolutely, because we have to save ourselves. That's the bottom line. So Rosa Parks would have been 106 years old today, but her life and legacy have inspired generations of African-American women. Here to share her thoughts on Rosa Parks and her meaning for black women today is Janice Mathis of the National Council of Negro Women. Hello there, Janice.
Hello, Dr. Avis. Thank you for having me today.
I'm so glad to have you here, especially on this special day.
Absolutely. I never met Rosa Parks, but she inspired me like she did generations of other women and men. If you go back to 1957, that was a difficult time in the United States, especially in places like Alabama. You can tell the way I talked that I'm from down there, from South Carolina. And Brown versus Board of Education was decided in 1954. I was fully 12 years old, having been born in 1954, before I entered a school that was not segregated based on race. That was how long and how hard the South fought to resist Brown and the efforts at integration. Rosa Parks was one of those sheroes who just refused to take no for an answer. One day she said, "I'm not getting up from my seat." And the guy asked a bus driver in Montgomery, asked her, "Why won't you get up?" She said, "I don't think I should have to." With that very simple statement, she sparked a movement that was one of the most profound and important and successful movements for freedom in the history of this country and probably the world. They stayed off those buses for 380 days. Try to get us to do something for 3 days, right? But they stayed off those, and they say that E.D. Nixon and Martin Luther King carefully and cautiously rode around the town looking to see would people really boycott the buses. They didn't have any way of knowing. King was very young, very new in Montgomery. That morning, on December 5th, they elected him president of the Montgomery Improvement Association and marched him right into history. So we've got a lot to be thankful for. Now, the end of the story, of course, they won in court. Montgomery had to integrate the buses, but she was run out of town. She lost her job as a seamstress in a local department store. The family moved to Detroit, where our good friend John Conyers gave her a job. That was the kind of caring that those folk had to have for each other, which is another lesson for us today. Would we care enough about somebody, Colin Kaepernick, who lost his job protesting for all of us? Would we care enough to pool our money and make sure he had income and revenue? Those are the kinds of questions that Rosa Parks raises for us today. So I'm delighted to be here. We're strong people. If the enemies of freedom knew who we really were, they'd leave us alone because we always win. So to Rosa Parks, thank you for what you did and how you dedicated your life to helping all of us be freer.
Absolutely. So what do you think we can really learn today as black women and black people about persevering even in difficult times from her life?
I think that, first of all, that there was a certain kind of unity. Now, from a tactical, you're an organizational specialist. I know how you organize things. It was simple. We went all over the place, It was integrate the buses now. In order for a movement to be successful, it needs to have a certain kind of simplicity so everybody can get it.
Right.
And then there was this sort of unified fervor. You knew who the target was. The other thing, the lesson that we draw from it is that these systems of oppression don't stop coming just because we're in 2019. That there was de facto segregation. The bus driver said, get up, and I'm going to move the sign back and expand the white section and just sort of arbitrarily truncate the black section because I feel like it. That's de facto.
Right.
But it was backed up by de jure, the legal segregation, and she was charged with and convicted of violating the Montgomery City Ordinance. What does that amount? Today, Marsha Fudge was in Texas taking testimony about the restoration of the Voting Rights Act. So we have to fight the systems of oppression that are backed up by law and those that are backed up by custom.
So, brothers, what do you think about, Rosa Parks? What sort of influence has her just bravery made on your life?
It's amazing. I mean, and it's ironic in a kind of an odd way that today is National Transportation Day, Public Transportation Day, and public transportation, like beyond just heavily integrated city, is also about movement and economic freedom and getting people to and from jobs.
Right.
We have a real problem here in the United States recently with the fact that public transit is losing ground to services like Uber and so forth. And a lot of people who depend on it don't have cell phones, don't have credit cards, and they need buses to get around.
Right.
But services are contracting at the same time that the need is growing among a certain segment of population. So I think it's really ironic and interesting and inspirational in a way that Rosa Parks Day and her birthday occurs on the same time we're talking about the need for more expansive and more accessible public transportation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's probably the person here that's had the greatest compounded effect of Rosa Parks' action. It's nothing less of inspirational. As our good friend Janice said, the fights and struggles don't go away. They just evolve and mutate and, reappear themselves in different ways. And, look, it's up to my generation to keep that fight going forward.
Absolutely.
Well, we've been talking about a lot of this stuff today on this hour. A lot of the
Absolutely.
fights that have been won but not over. I mean, the black farmers, the racial sensitivity of a sitting U.S. governor.
Yes.
So it also is reminiscent. It's not that long ago. I mean, we're talking about within our lifetime, certainly within my lifetime. My parents graduated from a segregated high school, my parents. And, there was not that long before we, as their heirs, were, when I was born, they couldn't vote in certain states. So it is inspirational, and it is a call to action for the fact that we still have a lot of work that's not done and a lot of fights that we don't even know are around the corner yet.
Absolutely. Michael.
A second plug for my mom. My mom used to work at the National Council of Negro Women with Dorothy Height.
That's right, she did.
But I think most of us, the first papers we wrote in school were either Martin Luther King Jr. or Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
And I certainly wrote my share of Rosa Parks papers, and it just takes so much pride in it. And don't say anything bad about Rosa Parks.
That's right.
You don't hear anybody.
The fight starts.
Absolutely. Very real hands. Absolutely. A hero and a pioneer.
Absolutely.
Happy birthday, Rosa Parks.
That's right. That's a wonderful way to end it. Happy birthday, Rosa Parks. That's it for Roland Martin Unfiltered. We will see you back tomorrow. Holla. Is that better?
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.